You've spelunked into the Matt Cave.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, well, Nintendo. It's going to be a lot to talk about the video game industry and pricing and just not knowing what they're doing anymore. Just being out of touch of just consumers. Just thinking they know better. So I'm going to go into that later on in the show. But to kick things off, I'll talk about Real Salt Lake getting a win against a shockingly terrible LA Galaxy team. And then I'll talk about the Jazz and Cooper Flagg and if I actually think the NBA will allow the Jazz to have the first overall pick. And then, of course, I'll talk about the Utah Hockey Club. I went to another game, and yes, it was fun. But as always, please like, review, comment, subscribe, wherever it is, however you're listening. Helps me out a ton. Gets more spelunkers in here. You know the drill by now. And you can find me on YouTube, which is the Matt Cave Podcast, all one word. And you can find me on Facebook, the Matt Cave Podcast. So do that, and let's just go into it. So Real Salt Lake, their run of form recently was not good. 2 straight games without a single goal. Once against FC Dallas, once against Minnesota. To give you an idea, FC Dallas is currently 2 points ahead of Real Salt Lake, and Minnesota is as well. But again, much like last year, Real Salt Lake, their goal differential is -4, which is tied for the third worst in the Western Conference in the MLS. So, not what you would say a stellar beginning to the season, but Diego Luna just proved that he's not long for Real Salt Lake. He's not long for Sandy, because Real Salt Lake is a different team with him out on the field, or for all of you football heads, the pitch. There's just more aggression. There's more energy. He's flying around. He's having a good time, and that definitely bleeds off of him onto his teammates, and everybody just feels more confident. When you watched the game against Minnesota, you watched the game against FC Dallas, there was a malaise. The ball would get stuck with certain players. There was just no movement. And with Diego Luna out there, much like Chicho Arango last year, there's a fulcrum. There's a point where they could just go, all right, we're just going to get it to Diego, and we're going to just go from there. That's what it felt like watching the game against LA Galaxy. The defense played really well, but the LA Galaxy are missing Ricky Puig, who was one of their best players last year, and they have a very young and very inexperienced defense. So I'm not going to be taking very much of anything from this particular match, except for the fact that Diego Luna is crucial to any sort of success Real Salt Lake has, but he's also not long for Real Salt Lake. When the summer transfer window opens over in Europe, I fully expect one of the teams in like Portugal, maybe Spain, possibly the Netherlands, swooping him and picking him up. If I were Real Salt Lake, I would definitely sell him, but I would make sure it's a record fee, because Diego Luna is still really young. He's like 21 years old. So there's a lot of potential still in him. He's also incredibly good. So there's just something there that another bigger club could come in and get him. When that happens, this isn't an if. When that happens, Real Salt Lake is in a lot of trouble. Because my pick before the season, if you remember, was Diogo Gonçalves picking up where Chicho Arango left off. And that hasn't really happened. He had a gimme goal that he just launched over the net. And there was like, you could tell the ball skipped up a little bit, and that's why the ball launched high before he kicked it. But when you're a professional and you've been playing soccer/football your whole life, and you're at this level of professionalism, I'm not going to say MLS is a high level, because it's not. There's a reason the aging stars come here to retire. But it's still a professional-ish level of football, and you have to hit that goal. You have to hit it right. and he just launched it into the stratosphere, really. So there's a lot of bad things that Diego Luna covers up. There's a lot of scars and whatever else that he's the makeup that you put on to make it look pretty. And when he goes, Real Salt Lake is going to be an ugly pig. They're not going to be very good. But my message to everyone is enjoy Diego Luna while we have him, because he is getting a lot of attention from everywhere, which is good, because he's also a homegrown player by Real Salt Lake. His story is a wonderful one. If you don't know his story, please go find it, because where he came from to where he is now, it's an awesome story. So I'm rooting for the guy. I enjoy watching him play. There's a reason Mauricio Pochettino calls him up for the U.S. men's national team. It's because he's that good. It's not because there's nobody else. It's because he's that good. So my message to you all is enjoy Diego Luna while we have him. All right, let's move it right along to the Utah Jazz and Cooper Flagg. So Cooper Flagg had a heartbreaking moment in the Final Four where he had the go-ahead shot go up, but it did not go down. That stinks, but that's also good news for Jazz fans, because that's one less game where you're holding your breath going, I really hope he doesn't get hurt in this one. That's where I was at for pretty much from the Elite Eight on. I was thinking that about Cooper Flagg, because if you remember back to the ACC tournament, he rolled his ankle really bad, had to be carried off the court, and everybody in the state of Utah held their breath. Obviously, people on Tobacco Road over in North Carolina, over in Durham, were also holding their breath for a different reason, but people out here in Utah, we were holding our breath too, and fortunately, he was okay. But the Jazz continue to do what they need to do. They haven't won a game since that unfortunate win against Washington, but they are like 1-15 in their last 20 in their last 16 games, and it's wonderful. It's what I want. And for the first half, they are competitive against a lot of these teams. Against the Rockets, they were never competitive, but against the Pacers, they were actually leading at the half by 2. Against the Nuggets, they were competitive. They were only down, I think, by 10 or so at the half. And against the Hornets, they were competitive throughout the whole game. That was such an important game to lose, though. I'm so happy that they lost against Charlotte. And when we take a peek at the full standings for like the draft, I guess, because this time of year there's 2 races, one to the playoffs, one to the lottery. The Jazz are winning the race to the lottery. They currently have the worst record in the NBA. This is the first time the franchise has ever lost more than 60 games in a season. So that's something. We're setting records here, at least, I guess. In their last 10 games, they are 1-9. They've lost 8 in a row. They've shut down Jordan Clarkson for the season. Like I said last week, for plantar fasciitis. It wouldn't surprise me if they shut down John Collins for the rest of the season here soon. And then just have Lauri Markkanen play the first half of games and then sit him out the rest. Because technically, that falls within the guidelines of the star player playing time rule that the Jazz violated and got fined $100,000 for. You have to play who is considered a star player on your team, and the reason Lauri Markkanen is considered a star player is not just because he's very good, but it's because he was an all-star within the last 3 years. So that's why the Jazz were fined that amount. And so everything is going well. Now the lottery, just those ping pong balls or the chilled envelope or whatever it is, needs to go Utah's way. Like, I said this last week, and I've said it before too. I'm with Boogie Cousins on this one if I'm Cooper Flagg, and I see that any other of these like 3 or 4 worst teams. So if the Jazz get it, I'm coming out. But if the Pelicans get it, you're behind the Saints there. Like, no one's going to really care about basketball in that market. And then if you go to Washington, they're a dumpster fire beyond imagination. And Charlotte, nobody cares. Nobody cares over in Charlotte about basketball. They never have. So if you come to Utah, you're a hero. You're the savior. You're the guy. And Ryan Smith will do whatever he can. He will pay you whatever you want to stay here. So I think if I'm Cooper Flagg and I'm looking at that, I'm doing what Boogie Cousins said. And it's just like, all right, well, if the Jazz don't get the top pick, I'm going back to school. Because he's still going to make a boatload of money if he goes back to school. And he could win a national championship and then come out again. And the Jazz would be right there waiting for him. Really. So that's what I would do if I were him. Obviously, I'm not him. But that is where the Jazz are in terms of lottery. There are 4 games left in the season. The Jazz need to lose all 4. They really need to lose all 4 because they are only 1 game ahead or behind, depending on how you look at the standings, of the Washington Wizards. But if we look at the Jazz's schedule for the remainder of these games, they play today as I'm recording this against the Atlanta Hawks, and then they play against Portland, who is playing for a play-in position, and then they go up against the best team in the NBA in the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then they're going against Minnesota, who is fighting for playoff positioning as well. So the only scary game left here for the Jazz that they might win is against Portland. So we're looking at 4 straight losses, closing out the year on like a 15-game losing streak and doing exactly what we need to do to get that number 1 overall pick. My worry is tinfoil hat theory. Adam Silver is going to make sure the Jazz don't get that pick because the NBA fined the Jazz, whereas they didn't have to fine Washington because Washington's hasn't had an all-star in like 5 years, so they haven't had to worry about that rule. And then Charlotte, their star player is always hurt, so they never have to worry about it. So that's my fear. That's my stream of consciousness for you when it comes to the top overall pick. Oh, I just want it to happen. Just one good thing happen for the Utah Jazz. Adam Silver, please. Just once. Just once. Charlotte's had the top overall pick, but Utah has never had the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. Ever. And the Jazz have more Hall of Famers than the Charlotte Hornets. And the Charlotte Hornets have had a couple of number 1 overall picks in their many different iterations. And the Washington Wizards also have had a number 1 overall pick. If you remember, it was John Wall. So let's give it to the Jazz. Come on. Break some records here. The Jazz have broken records this year. Why can't the NBA? All right. Let's move it on along to the Utah Hockey Club. So you're telling me there's a chance. That keeps coming to mind, that scene from Dumb and Dumber, that it's become a meme now. The Utah Hockey Club has like a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs. They are still alive, although very barely. The doctors are coming to pull the plug on that life support, but they're there. And what has impressed me about this team is they've beaten the best of the best in the NHL. So they beat the number 1 team in the West, and which happens to be the best conference, which happens to be the best team in the league. They beat the best goalie in the league. They scored 3 goals on him. One of the goals was an empty netter, so Connor Hellebuyck wasn't on the ice for it. And they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, who is one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. They have a guy in Nikita Kucherov, who is one of the best players in the league. Before the All-Star/International break this year, they went to Washington, D.C., and they beat the best team in the Eastern Conference in the Washington Capitals. And the Washington Capitals were at full strength for that game. So this team is, you just heard it in my voice there. I was at the game, so you just heard it right there. But this team is very close. They just need 1 or 2 more big pieces, and they will be competitive in this Western Conference. And there's a couple of numbers I want to throw your way about the Western Conference. So the Eastern Conference right now has 1 team with over 100 points. That is the Washington Capitals. The Western Conference has 3 teams at or over 100 points. The Winnipeg Jets, the Dallas Stars, and the Vegas Golden Knights. And oh, by the way, there's 2 more that will probably hit that 100-point mark in the West, with the Colorado Avalanche sitting at 98 points and the Los Angeles Kings sitting at 97. That's not even mentioning the Edmonton Oilers, who were in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. And then you have teams like the Minnesota Wild, the St. Louis Blues, who have won 12 games in a row. And so we look at the Western Conference. It is the better conference. In the East, there's two other teams that could potentially get to 100 points in the Carolina Hurricanes and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it's ridiculous because in Utah's own division, the Central Division, there are going to be three teams at or above 100 points. If St. Louis continues on this tear and they just win their last 16 games, they will also finish above 100 points. So that would be four teams in the division that Utah plays in above 100 points. That is insane. So right now, Utah is sitting at 82 points. If they were in the Eastern Conference, they would be 1 point off of a wild card spot. So yes, while the Utah Hockey Club is further down the rungs in the West, overall in the league, they're in the top half. And that's incredible from where they came last year. Last year, the team only was able to achieve 77 points. So they've already cleared that hurdle by 5 points, and they're going to clear it even further. There are career highs for guys like Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, Clayton Keller, Mikhail Sergachev, obviously Veggie, fan favorite. I love Veggie. Karel Vejmelka in goal, in case you didn't know who that was. This team is so close. And they have so much cap space going into the summer. They have draft capital to move around if a disgruntled star shakes loose. So potentially, this team could get two huge pieces in the offseason to become on the same tier as the Colorado Avalanche, as the Dallas Stars, as the Winnipeg Jets. It's entirely within the realm of possibility, and it's more likely than the Jazz getting the top pick in the draft. As you can tell, I am very excited about this team. I've already been to 3 games. I haven't been to a Jazz game since Andrei Kirilenko was playing for the Jazz and Jerry Sloan was still coaching. That's how long it's been since I've been to a Jazz game. I've been to 3 hockey club games this year. In fact, I've been to a hockey club game more recently than to a BYU football or basketball game. So for me, this is really exciting. I like the team. I like all of the players. None of them come across as jerks. None of them come across as holier than thou, like how dare you interview me. Like, I like them all. From Kevin Stenlund to Alexander Kerfoot, Ian Cole, Ollie Mata. Like, I know these guys' names. Like I used to know the Utah Jazz roster top to bottom. Today, if you ask me, and I cover this team for you guys, I could not name all 12 players on the Utah Jazz active roster at this point in time. I could probably get 10 out of the 12, but I wouldn't be able to get all of them. But I can tell you pretty much top to bottom, and I'm not going to, but I could tell you top to bottom who is on the Utah Hockey Club. Even the best players in the farm system with the Tucson Roadrunners. Yes, I am all in on this team. I am all in on hockey. I love it. It is so much fun to go to those games. The fans, the energy, everything is so high. It is so much fun. Even in the game that, even in the game that the Utah Hockey Club lost against Detroit, it was still a lot of fun, and Utah only scored 1 goal at the beginning of the game. It was still a ton of fun. Suffice it to say, give hockey a chance. If you haven't watched it, give it a chance. And I'm not saying go to a game, because that's expensive. Just watch it. Watch it with somebody who might know a little bit about hockey, and they can explain it to you. It is such a fun sport. It is like soccer or even basketball, where it's constant action for a long time, limited breaks, and the physicality, and then the ice gives it such a different dimension. It's such a fun game to watch. Please give it a chance. If you live in Utah, please be a fan of this team, whatever they're called. If they wind up being called the Outlaws, I'm going to be so disappointed, but I'm still going to root for the team. I want them to stay the Utah Hockey Club. It's unique. Everybody will know who you're talking about. If you say the Mammoth, I mean, sure, that's okay, I guess. Outlaws, you sound like a 10-year-old who named a team. I hate that name. And I was talking with I was actually talking with my buddy that I went to the game with last night, and we were talking about Outlaws, and it's like, that doesn't really make sense for Utah because the Wild West wasn't really in Utah. Sure, you got like Promontory Point, Golden Spike, the railroads met here, but there wasn't any like Billy the Kid or anything like that out here. That was like in Kansas and Oklahoma, Missouri, even Colorado, but not in Utah. So being named the Outlaws doesn't make sense. Being the Mammoth makes sense because they've found mammoths here. Just be the hockey club. Just be the hockey club. Where's the harm in it? And then you don't have to do a logo revamp. You don't have to recreate the jerseys or anything like that. You can just keep going forward with what you got. It'll save you money. There you go. It'll save you money, Ryan Smith. So just go with the hockey club. That's my pitch. I could probably do a better pitch to him, but, right now that was kind of off the cuff. So there you go. And as I was recording this, Alexander Ovechkin just broke Wayne Gretzky's goal-scoring record all time. Congratulations to him. That's 896 goals. Wow. That's a lot of goals. So congratulations to the grade 8, Alexander Ovechkin. If you haven't watched him play, do so. I mean, him and Sidney Crosby saved hockey. They are the Magic and Bird of hockey. They really are. So catch them while you can because they only have like 1 or 2 years left for the both of them. All right, so that is the sports talk today, everybody. Not much to go off of for like BYU football, Utah football, and then basketball accordingly. For BYU, Kebaketa is coming back. Kebaketa, oh my gosh, is coming back. He announced that. But Dallin Hall is in the transfer portal, which makes sense. He's going to lose playing time to the 2 incoming freshmen, so that makes sense. Good luck to Dallin Hall. Thank you for what you did this year. Wherever you go, I hope you absolutely destroy it. You average 20 points a game. You deserve it. And he was also a fun little blurb if you followed BYU basketball when they do the cut for BYU basketball. He was a good sport in that too. So good luck to him in his future endeavors. One thing I want to change in college culture is vilifying the kids when they transfer. I hate that. Vilify the coaches when they leave. Absolutely. But the kids just want to play. Let them go. And wish them best. That's what I think. So that's the kind of reaction I want to nurture in you spelunkers as well as with myself. Because the immediate knee-jerk emotional reaction is like, yeah, I hope you lose every game. I hope you don't even make the roster to the place you transfer to, you jerk. That's not the right way to think about it. Because these guys are kids. Like 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. They just want to play. They want to chase their dream. Let them. All right, so that is the sports talk here. And, oh yeah, quick note, Kyle Whittingham was at the hockey game. And so was Zach Moss, for all of you Utah fans, former running back of Utah. Played for the Bills for a long time. He's on the Bengals now. He was actually 2 rows in front of me. It was kind of cool. He's a nice guy. All right, so video game talk. First, I want to do a quick review of Assassin's Creed Shadows. I have about 30-ish hours into the game now, so I feel comfortable giving a review. It's very Assassin's Creed. One thing that people and game reviewers and everything else need to understand is when you buy one of these games, there's not going to be terribly too much groundbreaking in them anymore, especially if it's in a game series like Far Cry, The Division, Tom Clancy. You also have Far Cry already, Assassin's Creed, Halo, Call of Duty. Like, you're buying a series, so the game is going to remain largely the same. What you look for when you go into these series and you buy into them is subtle tweaks and enhancements and fixing the missteps of the previous game. Assassin's Creed Shadows has done that. I like the story in Assassin's Creed Shadows more than Valhalla, which was the most recent Assassin's Creed game. In Valhalla, you are less an assassin and more of like a berserker type, where you just go in and you just beat the crap out of everybody, whereas in Assassin's Creed, you are what they call a shinobi, a ninja. You are that. So that's really nice. They also have that samurai playable character too. So if you do just want to go in and mess some stuff up and not do stealth, you can do that too. So it has best of both worlds. So my advice for Assassin's Creed Shadows is if you've liked Assassin's Creed games in the past, get it. You'll enjoy it. If you're looking to get into Assassin's Creed, it's a good one. There are better ones to introduce yourself to the series, like Black Flag, for example. Even Assassin's Creed 3, I think, has the best story because it's the American Revolution. But this is a good one. If you want to jump in, it is a good one. So my advice is if you like Assassin's Creed in the past and you're thinking about getting back into it, definitely give Shadows a chance. If you're looking to get into Assassin's Creed for the first time, I would wait for this one to go on sale and then get it. But by no means is this an avoid it altogether game. It's not. It's a fun game. If you know what you're getting into, which is the Assassin's Creed gameplay, you're going to have a good time. I think the games can get overly large and kind of overwhelm you with the amount of stuff you can do instead of more forcing you down a path. But that's just my personal opinion. It doesn't make the game any worse or better. Player choice is fantastic, and I always encourage games to do that. It's just sometimes it can get too much. All right, and now the big bugaboo. Nintendo. Nintendo announced the Nintendo Switch 2. We were all waiting for it. It was going to happen this year, and we knew it was. Usually when Nintendo announces a new console or handheld, it happened in March. But when they started to pull out of E3, they didn't wait until June. They did it in March or in April, and they would do it in their own thing. They would do their Treehouse Live event, or it would be a Nintendo Direct, which is what it is now. And they announced it. And nobody's happy about it. Yeah. The price for the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be $449. That is more expensive than the PlayStation 4 when it came out without the disc drive. More expensive than the Xbox Series S and X when that came out. And 2 times the price of the Nintendo Switch. In fact, it is almost 3 times the price of the Nintendo Switch. Not only that, the price for games on this console, if you want a physical cartridge, it will cost you $90 per, so $89.99 for a physical copy of your game. Right now, it is $60 to $70 for a digital copy. So one you technically don't even own. For a digital copy of the game you want, it is going to be $80. $79.99 for games like Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, Pokemon, Legend of Zelda, Kirby, the shoot-offs or offshoots, of Mario Tennis, Golf, what have you. $80 to download those games, and you don't even own them. It's ridiculous. I don't care about the state of the world. The state of the world is the state of the world. It's whatever. That is out of our control. It's even out of the control of corporations. What you're doing, Nintendo, is you are going to cause another video game crash similar to what happened with the great E.T. video game Fallout. Now, that was an almost extinction event for gaming. It won't be for this, but what will happen is nobody's going to buy your stuff. Nobody is going to have that sort of disposable income. Period. Like, I am really struggling if I even want to get this to review it for you all because of the price. The price is ridiculous. And by no means should it cost that much. It is not going to have the same processing power as a PlayStation 5 or a Xbox. It doesn't. That's not what Nintendo does. Nintendo's lost the plot. They have lost the plot, and they are listening to corporate overlords instead of taking a pulse of gamers and what they're actually paying for right now. What I think is going to happen is it's going to be a massive turn towards indie developers, shorter, smaller games. AAA studios are going to die, and then they're also going to be going towards games like Fortnite or World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV, because those games are priced appropriately. Maybe a little expensive in terms of World of Warcraft being $15 a month or Final Fantasy being similar. I think that price can come down. And if it does, you would introduce a swath of new players to your product. And AAA studios that create games like Halo, like The Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn, all of those studios are going to fold because you're not going to make that money back. You're not. The way you make your money is off of merch, off of those games. Video games, much like sports franchises, are not going to make you a bunch of money. They're just not. It's a losing venture, especially consoles. Just ask Sony and Microsoft how much money they lose per console. You're not making your money back. And I thought Nintendo learned their lesson with the Wii U and the massive flop that it was when the CEO of Nintendo took a pay cut so that he could save the jobs of everybody else because of how bad it was. The Switch 2 is going to be a worse flop because the internet is more saturated in our lives. And so the opinions of people like yours truly will be going out and telling people, don't do it. Don't buy this console for this price. Like the Switch OLED, that is one I encourage you to get. It's $320-ish, depending on where you get it from. And it's a great console. It is. It's a great handheld. But I am not going to encourage anyone to spend $500 on the Switch 2 when it's barely better than the original Switch. I'm not going to do that. And shame on you, Nintendo. All right, that is the show this week, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Mad Cave.